In the modern age of gaming, when new titles are shown off well in advance of release, it provides plenty of time for fans to get excited for games and think about just how amazing they could end up turning out. This is in many ways a great thing for the industry, as publishers can gauge fan response to a trailer and if they have enough time, make changes according to popular demand. But it also creates a problem: high expectations. Now look, if you're a fan of a series, I believe you deserve the best product possible to justify you giving the company your money. You're playing for a fun, long-lasting experience, and if the vision of a game isn't fully realized, it can seem scummy in the eyes of a fan, and in the worst case scenario, they will stop being a fan going forward. Today I'll be talking about 10 Nintendo games that had massive potential prior to their release, leading to fans having these high expectations, but in one way or another missed out on being the best that it could be. The quality of games on this list is going to vary greatly because the list is mainly focused on the idea and inspiration behind games, and even if they turned out fine but had the potential to be a lot better than just fine, their spot will be justified here. Like my list of controversial Nintendo games, we're going to be sticking with titles of the past 10 years or so, and games of the same series are going to be allowed as long as they have missed potential in different ways. So without further ado, I say we get started, and in no particular order, here are 10 modern Nintendo games with massively missed potential. The first game I wanted to talk about today is Mario Party: The Top 100. This game upon its release was in an interesting situation. The Mario Party series at the time had already taken a turn for the worse in the eyes of the fanbase. Mario Party had significantly changed since its first line of installments, where now the traditional board concept is either being replaced with a car or a system where everyone rolls a dice at the same time. Regardless of the new system, it wasn't really appreciated by the fanbase. The fanbase wanted one thing, and it's for the franchise to go back to the way it originally was. But when Mario Party: The Top 100 was first revealed, the idea that it presented struck a chord with the fan base and made them think, hey, maybe this is going to be a new Mario Party that's actually good. A Mario Party legacy game where the best aspects of the past is included seems like a fantastic idea, but in application it didn't really work out so well. Mario Party: The Top 100 was designed to bring the best 100 minigames from Mario Party history, and that is going to be the main draw for you buying this game. Even though the board system isn't going to be exactly the way you want it, these 100 minigames will make up for it because they're the best minigames that we've ever had. Except the problem is the fans had no input on what these 100 minigames are going to be, and yes, they included many of the best minigames in Mario Party history, but there are also some significant ones left out. There was such massive potential here for a large-scale voting system, an idea to give fans a voice into what they wanted out of the next Mario Party. Now, if they were actually going to implement a system like this, they would have had to reveal the game long before its release to provide time for all these minigames to be appropriately developed. But I still think it would have made up for it, especially if they brought back boards from the past as well with a fan vote. This would not only bring back the original board concept that fans would have loved, but it would also bring the exact 100 minigames that fans wanted to see the most. Unfortunately, neither of which was present in the game. So because of all these reasons, Mario Party: The Top 100 definitely did not live up to the potential that it could have had. The second game that I wanted to talk about today is Star Fox Zero for the Wii U. This was the first entirely new Star Fox game in over a decade and had a chance to innovate while remaining true to the roots of the series' most beloved games, but instead fails to accomplish this goal because it tried too hard to remain in the roots of the past. Most Star Fox fans will tell you that the experience found in 64 is the best Star Fox experience out there, and many games since then have tried to innovate a little bit too much away from the original style that they enjoyed. So they wanted Star Fox Zero to be a new take on this original Star Fox style. Seems like a decent request for Nintendo to want to fulfill, and hell, if they fulfilled it, I'm sure there would have been a lot more sales for this game considering that it ended up flopping sales-wise. And why was this? Because it tried so desperately to be just like 64, which we had already experienced on the 3DS in the form of a remake, and the levels were way too similar. Fans felt that this game didn't really innovate enough. But maybe this could have been excused if the control scheme was good, but unfortunately that didn't work out so well either. Star Fox Zero has an innovative control scheme, but it wasn't beloved to say the least, and is many people's biggest criticism of the game. Forcing you to look up and down from the gamepad to your TV screen, a lot of people didn't feel very comfortable with this and felt it being more of a chore to play this game rather than just having a fun time, which is really what they wanted. Star Fox Zero came in with massive potential of being a modern take on the original Star Fox style, but fails to accomplish this goal by not providing enough of a modern take and not having a good control scheme. The third game, or should I say games that I'm going to be talking about today, are Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a big Pokemon fan and I love Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and they may very well be my favorite games on this entire list, but there is definitely some missed potential here that even the biggest fans of this game will admit. When you look at other Pokemon remakes, they added so much more in. Fire Red and Leaf Green as well as Heart Gold and Soul Silver are immense upgrades over the originals, but Game Freak decided to take some shortcuts with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, cutting enough corners to make the fan base not as happy with them. The Delta episode, which is effectively the post-game of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, was intended as a way to include some content from Emerald, but while very enjoyable, fails to fully accomplish this goal. The Battle Frontier, which is the main new post-game feature from Emerald, is completely absent from this game, and after completing the game, you're literally left with a copy and pasted battle maze on from X and Y. This severely diminishes your post-game enjoyment if you've already played through it in X and Y. There were also almost no surprises left for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, with almost every new Mega Evolution and the Delta episode all being revealed before release. This took away the joy of discovering new changes for the remake in my own playtime, and also a large amount of potential post-game content. These games were great, but there was seriously potential for one of the best Pokemon experiences available here, and because they chose not to include the Battle Frontier for the reasoning of thinking not enough people would enjoy it, is very hard to buy. Because a very common criticism of these games is the fact that they don't have the Battle Frontier, and the large uproar from the fanbase about it is just a testament to how many people would have enjoyed this feature. Look, these games ended up turning out really good, but when many fans still prefer to play Pokemon Emerald over Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which released 12 years later, you know you've done something wrong when it comes to remaking a game. In terms of why for a Pokemon remake I decided not to include Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee on this list, it's mainly because I don't believe expectations were as high for those games as it was for Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, as many fans believed that Let's Go was just going to be mainly Gen 1, integrating some Pokemon Go mechanics. The fourth game that I wanted to talk about today is Mario & Luigi Paper Jam. No, I'm not going to be talking about Paper Mario Sticker Star on this list. That's a bad game and a controversial game for the series, not a game that I felt had a large amount of potential, considering the direction that I thought Nintendo was going with it. And that direction certainly didn't work out so well. But when you present an idea in 2015 for the Mario & Luigi series to cross over with the Paper Mario series, this simple idea of some of the most iconic characters from both of these series interacting with one another in a crossover is incredible. But this crossover that we actually ended up getting is very basic and doesn't involve the more interesting characters from both series. It's mainly just sticking Paper Mario in the Mario & Luigi world, and not being the best Mario & Luigi experience to begin with. But if you're going to have a game that's not as enjoyable as the likes of Bowser's Inside Story, you could at least have a lot of nostalgia from a bunch of these old characters coming back and interacting with one another to help carry the experience. At the very least, there should be a convincing narrative and engaging plot device included in this game to hook fans in, but unfortunately that didn't happen either. The story is fairly forgettable, and this is one of the least memorable Mario & Luigi experiences yet. And it's very unfortunate considering the massive potential that it had. The fifth game that I wanted to talk about today is The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes. The concept of this game is very unique. Take 3 links, put them together, and have them solve missions. A multiplayer top-down perspective Zelda game. Seems pretty interesting, right? Well, yeah, the concept, like all the games on this list, seems really cool, but in execution doesn't work out so well. The game is really short and made extremely easy when you're playing with your friends, almost trivializing any challenge that's included in the game. You're also going to have to use external methods if you want to talk to your friends while playing this game, since voice chat is not supported, and because of this, if you're trying to play online with random people instead, it's made a chore and very annoying. All you're left with is these little icons on the screen to tell people that you're working with online very basic messages, which often won't completely convey your intention. It makes trying to solve some of the most simple missions in the game aggravating and frustrating, and that's not the experience I'd like to go for when playing a Zelda game. So we've established that the multiplayer with friends aspect is way too easy, and the multiplayer aspect with random people around the world if you're playing solo is a nightmare. So what if you just want to experience this game yourself without strangers online? Being a Zelda game, it should have a pretty expansive single player mode, but that option is even worse than the multiplayer. There's also no engaging story to keep you going for a single player experience, meaning that you're screwed pretty much any way you want to play this game. This is quite a shame because it's a great idea for a Zelda title, but it's just ruined with poor execution. Not a terrible game, but far below the quality that it could have been. The sixth game that I wanted to talk about today is the only mobile game that I'm focusing on in this video, and this is Super Mario Run. Out of all Nintendo mobile games to choose, why did I pick this one specifically? Well, this is a 2D Mario game, one of the most popular genres of Nintendo games ever. When we saw the success of Pokemon Go, this game blew up and took over the world, and it still actually has a fairly active player base to this day. Mario Kart Tour blew up a lot more than most people expected after Mario Run, which did not succeed in the intended way. And why is that? I mean, hell, if Fire Emblem could blow up on mobile, certainly 2D Mario should. But it didn't because the majority of the game was locked behind a paywall, meaning that a lot of people who like to play these mobile games from a free perspective, not wanting to have to go through a paywall to complete the rest of the game, were left out. And the people who like to play these games for free is going to be the vast majority of the fan base, and they're going to be a very vocal majority of the fan base as well, sharing their experiences, the things they like about the game, the things that they don't like about the game. But the point is, all of this publicity is going to get more and more people to play Mario Run, and when you get a ton of people playing this game, there's going to be those who want to get an edge over one another, then they'll go and buy the microtransactions inside of it. This is the philosophy behind how most mobile games make money, and it's the philosophy that Nintendo should have used for Mario Run, because if they did use it, I guarantee you it would have blown up at least to the levels of Mario Kart Tour, potentially even more. Why did Nintendo not operate the game this way? I think just out of pure stubbornness, to be honest with you. Oh, we're gonna give you a teaser with a few levels, and then that's definitely going to incentivize you to pay to play more, right? Well, maybe not for some people. This game missed out on a massive opportunity for Nintendo to recapture some fans from the mobile market that maybe left them after the Wii days when they stopped playing Nintendo games. These people, if hooked in by Super Mario Run, could have potentially went and bought a Nintendo Switch and gone as far to buy New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe or Super Mario Maker 2. This could have been the ultimate goal for Nintendo in this mobile venture, but it was just executed terribly. The 7th game that I wanted to talk about in this video is Metroid All Around. This game is infamous in the Metroid fanbase because it was looked upon to be a modern take on a 3D Metroid game, while also bridging old story gaps in other Metroid genres to give fans a familiar sense of adventure. The high expectations from the fans brought upon them with the amazing graphics seen for a Wii game led to disappointment when they realized that the game has way too many drawn out cutscenes and the adventure is very linear, where you're rarely ever taken off the beaten path. The graphics can be nice, but it doesn't mean we want to see them over and over again in drawn out cutscenes just to show them off. I get the philosophy that you want to showcase what you got, but they could hold off just a little bit in this case, especially when the story that they're trying to tell with these cutscenes could be told much more concisely. It feels like they're just artificially trying to expand the length of the game by having you to sit here in cutscenes where characters are going to tell you information that you already know multiple times and just drag it out longer than it needs to be. In terms of the linearity aspect, that's not really what you want in a Metroid game. You like to go and explore. You got to do a lot of that in the Metroid Prime trilogy, which fans were just coming off of, so yeah, expectations were obviously high for this game, but it failed to capture that same magic that the Metroid Prime trilogy did, or even innovate in a way that made sense for the series. The potential was there for a brand new, great looking Metroid experience, but sadly, it didn't turn out that way. In terms of Metroid fans looking back on this game now, it's regarded more fondly than Federation Forces, which I guess is a good thing. Federation Force, which obviously wouldn't make sense to include in this list because people turned on it right away and had no expectation for how good it was going to be because they weren't going to give it a chance anyways. All Around, on the other hand, people were going to give a chance and really wanted it to be good, but sadly, it didn't turn out that way. The 8th game that I'm going to be talking about today is the second main series Pokemon game on this list, these being Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. I feel like I talk about these games all the time in top 10 lists nowadays, so I'm going to try to keep this segment a little bit more concise. These games are extremely popular, but also very controversial at the same time, with many people being adamant defenders of Sword and Shield or adamant critics of Sword and Shield. Being the first HD new generation of main series Pokemon games, graphics ended up being something that people really wanted to be good, and expected to be good at this point in the series. I was really blown away upon the original release of X and Y for how good the game looked on a handheld console. While I thought that the 3D models weren't the best, I was willing to excuse that because this was the first full transition to 3D for the main series games in the franchise. Sword and Shield, on the other hand, didn't have that same feeling to me. The graphics ended up lacking, reusing the exact same 3D models as used in the 3DS era. Pokemon are not nearly as expressive as they could potentially be, looking way more expressive in games like Pokemon Battle Revolution, which released many years prior. One of the more disappointing aspects with Pokemon Sword and Shield was the execution of the wild area as well. The idea of the wild area is so great, allowing you to explore with free camera control and find a bunch of rare Pokemon, do raids in there. It's just a great idea in general, but in practice it didn't work out so well. The graphics of the game is part of this, considering that the trees and the terrain in the wild area does not look good at all. Pokemon pop in extremely close to you, breaking your immersion at all costs. Pokemon Sword and Shield set up all of these great ideas and had a ton of potential to be a brand new main series Pokemon title with great graphics and a great new feature being the wild area, but messes up all of those aspects in many ways, to the point where many people aren't very pleased with how the games turned out. This doesn't completely ruin Pokemon Sword and Shield for me, but it hurts the games a lot, and that's why I feel they had a lot of missed potential. The 9th game that I wanted to talk about today is Super Mario Party. The second Mario Party game of the video and the last Nintendo Switch game of the video, Super Mario Party comes in with a lot of praise from the fan base for it doing one thing. Doing what Mario Party the Top 100, like I mentioned earlier on in the video, did not do. And this is return the Mario Party series to the original board concept. This alone was enough to give it a ton of sales and a ton of praise from fans. However, the praise for Super Mario Party kinda stops there. It takes steps forward, but also takes steps back at the same time. There are only 4 boards in Super Mario Party. 4. The original Mario Party had 8 boards. This is half of what the original Mario Party provided. These boards are also incredibly small in size, which may not initially seem like the biggest deal considering that dice conventionally go from 1 to 6 in this game, excluding specific ones. However, this is ruined because of the inclusion of the buddy mechanic, which allows for massive dice rolls to be accumulated after you get several buddies with you, meaning that you could just zoom around the board, get to wherever you want, and accomplish the goal. This is not really what I personally expect out of a Mario Party board. There's also no online board play with friends. This is something that should be seriously expected for a new Nintendo Switch title. Nintendo is making people pay money to play games online. The least that they could do is allow you to play Mario Party with friends. I completely understand why Nintendo would not want people to play Mario Party with random strangers online. This is a game geared for kids, and if voice chat was implemented, there could definitely be some problems with it. There would also be people rage quitting all the time in the middle of the game, ruining the experience for many people. However, there is absolutely no excuse for why Super Mario Party does not have online with friends unless Nintendo is actually unable to provide this feature. Either way, Nintendo is really messing up here. Either they're declining to provide a service that people want out of their game, or they're unable to provide the service and making people pay additional money for a service that isn't fully functional. Which one is it? I don't want to hear either response. I just want online in Super Mario Party. There was so much potential here for a new Mario Party game that returned the series to its original roots, and there were a ton of great mini games included in Super Mario Party as well. But it's the boards themselves that were uninteresting, small, and there was no online to go with them. This severely hurts Super Mario Party and means that it had some missed potential. And the final modern Nintendo game that I wanted to talk about today that had some massive missed potential is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. This is in no way saying that Skyward Sword is completely bad, because it could have been a really good game with some changes, which is why I feel that it had this missed potential. I feel the first thing that always has to be addressed with Skyward Sword is the controls. The controls didn't work well with everyone's Wiis, and they didn't function properly in the showcase for the game, which is definitely a sign that you gotta fix something up. Now, swinging a sword as Link with a Wii remote is an incredibly fun and innovative idea that I love that they decided to implement, but it didn't work properly for many people, meaning that this idea didn't work well in practice, and maybe if it was to get a remake on the Nintendo Switch or something like that, you'd be able to do it better with the Joy-Con technology, but at the time, the idea didn't work out so well with the hardware that Nintendo had available. Another problem with Skyward Sword outside of the controls is that it spends an unnecessary amount of time telling you information that you already know. Telling you where to go at all times, holding your hand, many things that people didn't want in an explorative Zelda game. If the controls and hand-holding would be refined, this game could live up to its inner potential. Unfortunately, that's not the case, leaving Skyward Sword to be regarded by many fans as the black sheep of 3D Zelda titles. Again, I hope people don't really take this less as me completely bashing these games. I just feel that they had missed potential from what they could have been. I liked a lot of the games that I talked about today, but they could have been so much more than they ended up being. If you're interested in some of the most controversial Nintendo games that have released over the past 10 years, I have a link to watch that video that I've made on the screen right now. Others are linked on the screen as well, and consider subscribing and clicking the bell icon if you want to see more Nintendo content on your way very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.